folks. Well, welcome to today's presentation. Today, I'm going to be talking about identifying your ideal target market for maximum ROI. Identifying the ideal target market, in my opinion, is one of the most important things that a business owner can do. And we'll talk a little bit about why that is here in just a few moments, but let's just kind of dive right in. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Bradley Ball. I'm a business improvement and growth strategist. I've built and sold 3 small businesses myself, 25 years of marketing experience, 10 years of sales experience. And I was the advertising department lead for high-end culture magazine at the age of 30. Why do I tell you this? It's not to brag, but it's just so that you know who you're getting the information from. You have a good idea kind of who I am, what my background is. And so when I tell you something, it's coming from the experience that I have. So identifying your ideal target market. One of the biggest reasons why business owners feel stuck and wondering why their marketing and other efforts don't produce enough customers is because they refuse to focus on an ideal target market. And I get that it's a real struggle for people, especially when they think, well, anyone can use my service, or anyone can use my product, or everyone can use my product or service. It's a really difficult roadblock mentally for business owners to get over, the idea that lots of people can use your product or service. Absolutely. But here's the thing, when it comes to marketing what you do to the people that you want to sell to, if you don't get specific, you're actually creating some bigger challenges for yourself. And we'll talk a little bit about that here as we go on. But why do business owners do this? Why is it that they refuse to focus on an ideal target market? Well, sort of on the same end of things where they think that everyone is a customer, but the real key reason why they refuse to focus on an ideal target market is because they fear that by narrowing their focus, they'll actually miss out on business. Well, today I'm here to tell you that couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, my own personal experience is that when I started telling people that I specialized in working with accountants and bookkeepers, I got lots of referrals and clients who are accountants and bookkeepers. And prior to that, when I just went out there and said, hey, I can help business owners, I would get, very little results. I would get a few, referrals here and there, but I also found that a lot of the referrals were not qualified people, right? And then when I switched my niche and I started telling people that I specialize in working with home services businesses, I got a lot of referrals and clients who are owners of home service businesses. Does that mean that I didn't get business from other industries? Absolutely not. I got other people coming in. In fact, guess what I got by doing this, by getting really, really specific? What I got more business than I knew what to do with. I had more business than I could handle, because even though somebody didn't fit into that target market or didn't fit into that niche, they were still approaching me and saying, hey, listen, I don't fit into what you say you're looking for, but I like the end result that you're talking about for those people. Is that something that could apply to my business? So instead of me having to try to convince people that they should be working with me, they're asking me, can what you do fit for me? So it's a very different conversation. So like I say, that couldn't be further from the truth. So if you're still telling yourself that by getting really specific and narrowing it down and identifying your ideal target market is keeping you from getting more business, you got to stop telling yourself that lie, because it's not true. But why would you want to have an ideal target market? Well, your referral partners need much smaller context. Think about it this way. If you walked into a room of people and they all said, I'm looking for business owners who, and that's the entire context you have. It's not possible for you to walk away from that meeting and think of 30 different asks, because there's nothing unique about any of them. But when you create a smaller, more specific context for somebody, like looking for accountants and bookkeepers, when somebody meets an accountant or bookkeeper, their subconscious, their brain goes back to what was said before, and they're like, oh yeah, who was it that was looking for accountants and bookkeepers? Oh, that was Brad, right? Or, I'm looking for carpenters, or I'm looking for landscapers, or I'm looking for, business coaches, whatever it is. When you give people context, they're much more able to refer to you, because when the situation arises, their brain goes, oh, I get this. There's a context here. There's something that sparks a memory for me. But when it's too broad, the human brain just isn't capable of trying to separate all of that. So when it's, unless you've done something, completely out of the ordinary to get somebody to remember you, which is still pretty difficult. If you still have a room of people that are very, animated and, excited about what they do, unless you give them some sort of smaller context, it's going to be really difficult for other people to refer to you. The other thing is that your prospects want help from someone who gets them and their problems, right? So when you're marketing to businesses, if they look at you and go, well, you don't know anything about what I do, you don't know anything about the kinds of challenges that I'm up against, you don't have any context as to what a business owner like me is up against, why on earth would they pick you over somebody else, right? So when you start to talk in very specific terms, the prospects that you're looking to do business with go, okay, well, this person understands what I'm up against, right? And if you start talking about things like that are just value adds for those specific industries or that niche, they go, okay, well, this person gets me. Like they are on top of what's coming through the pipe, and we'll get to it a little bit later, is so that you're able to provide more information for them. So things like when you focus on a target, you actually start to notice everything that that target wants. So just think of it this way. If you decided that your target market was IT companies, for example, when you decide that you're doing that, you're telling everybody else that you're looking for IT companies, guess what happens in your own brain? If you see an article that's relevant for IT companies, you go, oh, this is something that my ideal target market might be looking for. And you maybe, capture a link for that, and you can share it with those people that you're having conversations with, right? Or you might see a Facebook post, or you might see somebody asking like, hey, who's a good IT company? So when your own focus, when your own context is smaller, what happens is that you start to become that much more aware. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole psychological side of it, like we could get into the reticular activating system and things like that. But ultimately, when your brain is able to say, this is stuff that's relevant for me because it's also relevant to the people that I serve, then it becomes much easier to be able to provide additional information and back up that credibility that you get your prospects and that you're willing to share what you find with them. And this actually makes your life way simpler and more rewarding. Just think if you were out there trying to find articles that were relevant for all business owners, and you posted an article, well, a very small percentage of all of the business owners that you're connected with are going to go, yeah, this isn't relevant. Or sorry, a very small percentage are going to think this is relevant to me, right? Or I'm not in that industry. If it's too generic, then it doesn't resonate with them, and they likely are not going to take the next step with you. So, what is an ideal customer? Well, sometimes people would say things like, well, an ideal customer is somebody who can buy what I sell. Well, that's not necessarily true, right? Because sometimes they're not necessarily your ideal customer. Somebody who has the means doesn't necessarily mean the kind of person that you want to be servicing, right? It doesn't necessarily mean the kind of person who's going to help you grow your business. Sometimes somebody has the means, but they also are trying to push you on price all the time, or they're trying to get you to go over and above what you typically will provide service-wise. And although that sounds great in theory, you have to reach a point where you say, this isn't part of the scope of work, right? So think about it in these terms. Like an ideal customer is actually someone who shares your passion for your product and service. If you really love what you do, or you really believe in the products and services that you sell, and you absolutely should. If you don't, then there's a whole other challenge there. But you want to find ideal customers who are also passionate about the products or services that you sell. I mean, think about if you sell a product or service that helps save a business owner money, right? Well, if they're passionate about saving money because it means that it allows them to do other things, you want somebody who's passionate about it. Somebody who just thinks, I know the cost of this is going to be, the cost is what it is, and I don't have any control over it. If they have that kind of mindset, they're also probably going to be swayed by, well, I might save a few bucks here or what have you, or the price comparison is not actually going to compel them to do anything.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
Right? Or think about what if you sell a product or service that helps save a business owner time, right? And they're really passionate about, like, everything else in our business is working great, but time is a real challenge for us, right? So if that's what your key differentiating factor is, you want to find other people who are passionate about that, because when they're passionate about it, they're much more likely to take the next step and go through the buyer's journey with you, the sales process, if you will, right? Another thing too is that when like, an ideal customer is somebody who you know, returns things a lot less often, or has much fewer complaints, right? So you might have created the best product ever, and you find that there are certain customers within certain demographic or certain psychographic or whatever, that just, it doesn't matter what you do, you can't service them to the nth degree, and they're not the kinds of people that you want to work with, because they're just never happy. Well, that can make it really frustrating to be a business owner. So that's also part of what your ideal customer should look like. They buy ongoing and they want more, right? So not only are they passionate about what you offer, but they're also saying, hey, I'm going to keep buying this because it's really helpful for me in my business, or me in my personal life, whatever you are selling, product, service, business to business, business to consumer. But then they're also asking you, like, what else have you got? That's a really great ideal customer, somebody who's always looking for you to add additional things. And whether that's more of the same thing, additional units of the same thing, or maybe it's, what other services can you provide to go along with this, right? They tell everyone about you. So an ideal customer also is out there, and they're an advocate for you. They're telling other people because they are appreciating what you provide for them, and they know that other people could also benefit from working with you. They spend more on average than the non-ideal customers, right? So these are people that have the means, and they see the value of what you're doing, and they're more likely to spend more with you over time. The other thing too is that they are more than happy to give you referrals, testimonials, reviews. I mean, if you really want to get more of those ideal customers, these are the types of people who are willing to do these types of things. There's nothing more frustrating than really servicing the heck out of somebody and then saying, hey, I know that we really helped you solve this problem, et cetera, et cetera. Would you be, open to leaving a review on our Google reviews, or would you be willing to record a quick video testimonial? And they go, nah, not really into that. Well, they check every other box, but they maybe aren't at that quite ideal customer. Not to say that you shouldn't service them, but if you had your choice, wouldn't you want to go after more people who are excited about, yeah, I would absolutely leave a video testimonial for you, and feel free to share it. And if you were doing a commercial, I would want to be in it. These are the types of people that you really want in your customer roster. And they also make you love what you do, right? You get excited because a customer is absolutely thrilled with what you provide for them, whether that's product or service, or whatever that is. When they say things like, hey, I really appreciate all the help that you've given us. I can't wait for us to work together for a long, long time to come. You can't help but feel excited about what you do, and you're going to end up loving it that much more. So when we talk about ideal customers, it's not just about people who have the means and are willing to use it. There's a whole other criteria here. Why is it important? Well, when you identify your ideal target market, marketing is more effective, right? Messaging works way better when it's specifically targeted to not only the ideal target market, but what are the problems that you help them solve, or what is the one key problem that that you can fix better than anyone else. So when you're creating marketing messages, it's not just more, it's not just easier, it's also more effective by having that specificity. Because really good marketing, what it does is it actually, what we call, breaks them out of this autopilot state. They're constantly focused on their day-to-day. So they don't, unless something is relevant to them, their brain doesn't wake them up from that autopilot state. We're kind of, we've got blinders on. I can't remember what the latest stat is, but something like, we see like 4,000 marketing messages a week on average as individuals. And 99% of everything we see isn't even relevant to us. We got to have a message out there that says, hey, are you experiencing this problem, right? Or do you know if this is a challenge for you? Or, you know what I mean? Like, so we need to be very specific about that, so that it makes them go, oh wait, this might be relevant to me. The other thing too is, unless you have an unlimited budget, it's really difficult to be able to market to anyone and everyone. In fact, it usually ends up being a lot of wasted money. Anybody that has ever said, well, we tried this tactic or we tried that tactic, or we did radio, we did TV, we did, infomercials, whatever that happens to be, and their results were lackluster, chances are very likely it's because they were trying to market to everyone. And when you do that, you get a whole lot of no one, right? Again, it goes back to that whole thing is your target prospects want to know that you get them, that you understand what they're up against. And when you can speak to them in that kind of language, they go, well, maybe this is something that we should investigate. They're much more likely to take the next step, after they've already been woken up from that autopilot state. The other thing too is that when you get really, really good and known for one target, your results just continue to exponentially get better, right? Because then now you have, you can have testimonials that are relevant to the same people that you want to, service. So let's just say, going back to my example earlier, get really good at working with home services companies. Well, carpenters talk to landscapers, and landscapers talk to cleaners, and cleaners talk to, snow removal, and snow removal talks to window cleaners. And, by the time it's all done, that word of mouth traction, plus you've got examples that you can say to somebody, hey, listen, I helped this company do this, and this is what it, and this is the benefit that they enjoyed because of it. And when you can speak in those terms, when you're talking to new prospects, whether that's in marketing or face-to-face, then they get the understanding, they're like, okay, well, if you could do it for them, and my company's kind of like theirs, I could be able to do that as well. And I tend to talk a lot about B2B, but just know that this also works on the B2C side. So you're talking to individuals, where let's just say that your target market was, lawyers who own a small firm of less than 5 lawyers. Okay, well, I've got an example now. I've got a testimonial. I can give you an example of how we helped this company do this, and this is what it was. Or I'm just trying to think of a B2C, life coaching or something like that, right? Where it's, I worked with a lawyer who's got a small firm. Their biggest challenge was their own mindset. So I was able to work with them. So then another lawyer in a small firm and very similar would be like, oh, that's something I should investigate because that's something I'm struggling with too. So when you get really good, like I say, and known for one target, you can use the examples to be able to build your credibility even further. It's also easier to replicate. One of the biggest challenges that I have with clients is going through this identifying an ideal target market. They say, yeah, but I've got like 4 or 5 different ones. So I said, great. Which one is putting more money in your pocket right now? Let's pick one. When you get really, really good at one, it's really easy to say, okay, now this is working really, really well. We've got some extra capacity. Now let's take that entire stream of marketing and conversation and all of the assets that go along with that ideal target market, and now let's replicate it for other markets. It's so much easier to be able to do that than it is to have a half-baked idea of what you're doing for one specific market and then go, okay, well, let's throw 3 more half-baked versions of this out there, and then we'll fine tune here and there and tweak and all. I mean, it's a nightmare to try and do that, and it's not very effective. The other thing too is that you avoid being a jack of all trades, because the opposite can happen. When somebody thinks that you are the answer to everything, they go, well, yeah, they can do a lot of things, but they're not very good at any of them, right? So there is that danger of getting to that perceived level, right? Think about it this way too, right? I don't know if you're familiar with the Pareto Principle, but or the 80-20 rule is sometimes called. Approximately 20% of your customers account for approximately 80% of your business's total revenue. So what if you could alter that ratio and attract 40% of your target customers instead of 20%? Because remember, your ideal target clients fit within all those criteria that we talked about. So if that only makes up about 20%, the ones that that love you, have the means, are telling others about you, will do testimonials, all of those criteria, what if you could really focus on that and increase from 20% to 40% of your ideal target customers? That would mean that your business revenues would double, right? Just think about that for a second. You're only focusing on a small portion of what you're currently doing, but you can double your business revenues by just really honing in on that 20%. So can you see why knowing exactly who your ideal target customer is can have such a dramatic impact on your business? Now, what are the key elements to identifying your ideal target market? Well, there's really kind of 3 keys, and then there's another step, which is to sort of go back and revise. The more, think about it this way, somebody who's sharpening an axe, or they're, filing down a spear or something like that, they don't just go over it once and go, okay, well, it's sharp, it's good to go. It's you get finer and finer and finer grit on the file to make sure, or the stone, so that way you're just continually sharpening it and sharpening it and sharpening it and just getting better at what you're doing. So the first key element is the physical description, or also known as demographics. And I'll talk about that in just a sec. The second portion is the emotional description. And don't get me wrong, just because we're focusing on the physical first does not mean that it has more weight than the emotional. In fact, when I get there, I'll tell you the stat, but it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90% of your effectiveness comes from understanding the emotional description or the psychographics of your ideal target market. And then it comes down to, who do you want to niche? Who do you feel like you could best serve? And part of that is on your own needs, but it also might be on your own comfortability level, or whatever that happens to be. And we'll talk about that in just a sec. And then we want to go back through that process and really fine tune it. So first and foremost, physical description, or the demographics. You want to, identify their physical characteristics. And what I mean by that would be the sort of things that you would put onto a government form, right? Sometimes referred to as a demographic profile. You must have a clear picture in mind of what your target customer looks like from a physical standpoint. This information will help you to pinpoint your target customer once you begin to market to them, making it easier to find them and position your marketing messages in front of them. So as an example, does your business sell to consumers or other businesses? If you sell to consumers, do you sell mostly to men or women or both? If both genders need what you sell, are they a perfect 50-50 mix? Or is it 70-30 mix, whatever that happens to be? So it's really important to notice to know these things. Is there a certain age group or age range that needs what you sell, such as 25 to 50-year-olds, or is it teenagers, or is it baby boomers? What are those things? What are the statistical elements that apply? And they could include, and there are others, absolutely, but it could include things like gender, age, education level, marital status, income level, employment status. You can see the list here, but going beyond just the typical men, women, age, or what have you, by really truly understanding who your target market is, you get better results on the other side. The other thing too is, if you're struggling with this and you're not sure, look at your best customer. What does your best customer look like? And when I say the best customer, the one that gets you excited, the one that pays on time, all of those other things that we talked about earlier, really, if you looked at your entire customer list, who's the one customer that you're like, man, I'd be really upset if we lost this one customer, and start there if you're struggling. So next would be, your ideal client's physical profile plays a huge role in how you craft your messaging to them, right? You wouldn't speak to a teenager the same way that you would speak to a 25-year-old. You wouldn't speak to somebody who's in their senior years the same way that you would talk to a toddler. I mean, it just only makes sense that the way that you are creating your messaging and your tone and all the rest of it is geared towards the type of people that you're talking to. You wouldn't use really, really formal language with somebody who's a little bit younger, and you might even consider using some more, what do you call them? Condensed words or colloquialisms, things that they would understand, but you wouldn't use those types of terms unless for a very specific purpose, to try and create, a bit of an interrupt for somebody in their, later years, or, like a baby boomer or a senior, right? The other thing too is that their hot buttons or problems are going to be very, very different, right? So in the younger ages, or men versus women, or somebody who makes 60,000 a year versus somebody who makes $1 million a year, their hot buttons or problems are going to be very, very different, and the language and the messaging that you're putting out there is going to be truly has to play to that. So this will also to help you to determine where you're going to put your marketing messages, right? If you're marketing to seniors, you wouldn't put ads in places where seniors are just not going to check, right? Excuse me. So you might stick to more traditional advertising, possibly, right? Unless you're trying to go after seniors who want to be tech savvy, they're not there yet. Well, that might change exactly where you put your messaging. And identifying the physical description removes the guesswork from marketing. You save yourself a lot of money and time and frustration by understanding what their physical makeup. However, their physical makeup of your target customer is responsible for only 10% of your success. And this is where I was talking about the emotional description. Give me one sec. Excuse me. Okay. So 90% of your success is determined by how accurately you define their emotional profile. Physical profile defines the logic needed, whereas emotional profile, defines the want. And it's been said, if you've not heard it before, that people buy based on emotion and they justify based on logic. And that's very, very true. People will actually come up with and make excuses and justify the reasons for buying something that they probably feel they couldn't afford, but it's because they want it enough, right? So they will justify, well, I've got a bonus coming in at the end of the year. Well, I'm pretty sure I'll get money back on my taxes. You probably either said it or heard it before, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And the other part of it too is that if somebody really wants to move away from a pain point, if there's something that's really bothering them, like I'm sick and tired of dealing with my unruly teenagers, and you're able to help them solve that problem, they will jump through hoops and they will come up with the money to be able to pay for it if it's a big enough pain point for them. So if you don't offer what they want, or the solution is, or the solution, or sorry, or your solution is exactly what your competition offers, you must innovate to provide the most value. So the other thing too is that people say that they buy based on price, but the reality is they buy based on value. I mean, just think about your own experience. Have you ever bought something that you could have bought cheaper, but there was something about the more expensive alternative that made you justify it and go, well, I'm getting more in this case, or there was a bonus, or I know that if I have a problem with it, my friend has one as well, so we can kind of work together to try and fix it, right? So when people tell you that, oh well, it's too expensive, or or I could get it somewhere else cheaper, what they're really doing is because there's no differentiation there in their own brain. They're looking at it as, well, why would I pay more? That doesn't make any sense. Human logic is to say, if the two things are exactly the same. So this is where the innovation comes in. And sometimes you have to be able to provide or make that innovation to demonstrate additional value of buying from you versus somebody else. And sometimes it's not even the product. So just as kind of a little tangent here, sometimes it's about the service. So you might have the exact same product as somebody else, but if your service level is that much higher, the prospects that you're looking to work with will see the value in the difference in the service. So the emotional profile also identifies your prospects' problems, frustrations, fears, and concerns. And I'll tell you, there's really two kind of emotional states where people, your prospects, customers, will buy from. It's either going towards pleasure or away from pain. And the research has shown in us that in the majority of cases, it's away from pain, right? I use the example often about how the fear of public speaking is the number one fear that people have. The second highest fear is the fear of death. So people are actually more afraid of giving the eulogy than they are of being in the coffin. So that just demonstrates right away that that's such a big fear that would motivate people to do something or to try and avoid that versus something that doesn't seem all that rational. But it just demonstrates my point about emotional versus, or sorry, away from pain versus towards pleasure. People buy based on emotion, not, justify using logic. The formula for success, like here's a key point for you, and you'll want to write this down. You want to find target customers who want what you sell, right? Not necessarily need, because need isn't always a big enough driver. We need to pay our electricity bill. We need to pay our rent or our mortgage, but man, we're not excited about having to pay for it, right? You have an innovative solution that offers them the most value, and then position your compelling marketing message in front of them while removing the risk. I'm going to say this again, because this is a really key point about marketing, and all marketing that's effective does this in one way, shape, or form. Find target customers who want what you sell, have an innovative solution that offers them the most value, then position your compelling marketing message in front of them while removing the risk. And because when you remove the risk, you give them all of the freedom to say, why would I not move forward with this? So if you can do this in your marketing, and this could just even be in your conversations, it doesn't necessarily mean ads or what have you, but all of your marketing, your conversation, the discussions you have with other business owners, if you can do this, then you will be successful. So let me just go through a quick case study that's relevant to lots of people. Whether you have children or not, you are aware that daycares exist. I'm just going to give you a bit of a scenario that demonstrates my previous points. So this is a typical daycare. The ideal childcare client could be male or female, anywhere between 21 to 45 years old, single or married, 1 to 3 kids, 3 months up to 5 years old, employed outside of the home, an annual income of somewhere between 20K and 250K. Okay. So let's just think about what's going through their minds as they contemplate leaving their precious newborn with complete strangers for 8 hours a day, right? What do they want from a daycare? What is it that is most important to someone who's in this situation? Now, this is just one potential target customer, right? What's going through their minds? What are the fears that they're having? What are they feeling emotionally about, brand new baby, both of these parents work. It's the first time that they're leaving their precious baby in the hands of somebody else, right? What are their fears, frustrations, concerns? What would you be thinking and feeling if you were in this situation? How would it be different if they had older kids or they were more established? Maybe, an income of somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 to $1 million. Would they be feeling different, right? If they were a little bit older, and like I say, they're already a little more established, their kids are a little bit older, and higher income, it becomes a very different conversation. And so the marketing has to be adjusted to do that, right? So what we really want to do is we want to learn how to think like your ideal clients think. And so in that previous example, that's why I got you to think about, if you were in that situation, what would you think, right? Know and understand what their hot button issues are. So for the younger couple, their issues are, well, I'm concerned that my baby is going to get hurt, or who I'm leaving them in the hands of, isn't going to take as much care as I am. And there's that, 220 snack that I always give if the baby is fussy or whatever it is, versus they have older kids. They're good, right? Just as long as they're eating their meals, as long as they're not plunking them in front of a TV, as long as they're not being, bullied and abused while I'm not there, then they have a much different concern, right? The emotional profile identifies your prospects' problems, fears, frustrations, and concerns, just like I said. And everyone may need what you sell, but within that, you have different segments that want very different things. And that's my point about the different ages and all the rest of it. So if you can identify the wants and then select the one that you have a passion for serving, right? You have an entire universe of prospects that need your product or service. But within that vast universe, you have different segments that want very different things. You see where it's coming back to the need versus the want. You must identify every single one of those wants and then select the one that you have a passion for serving. And that's how you will get to the point of identifying your ideal target market. So now we've gone through the demographic, we've figured out what their physical characteristics are. We've gone through the psychographic, we know what their emotional characteristics are. Now it's about making that decision as to who are you passionate about serving, right? What's going to get you excited as a business owner? The types of people that are going to get you excited about doing what you do every single day, and that you're going to want to keep doing it forever and ever and ever, right? So I'm going to give you a bit of an exercise here as you're going through this. I want you to jot down some notes. Talked about the physical characteristics, the emotional. Now I want you to think about, who are you passionate about serving? List all of the various wants that exist within your available universe of prospects. What are the things that your customers want, right? And again, differentiating from needs. Consider the daycare example. So there's the young parent, or with the newborn baby, only option is childcare. What would you want from that facility? Most young parents want childcare that's affordable, and they're and that's their hot button, right? Their main consideration. I didn't even actually mention that a moment ago, but yeah, think about that. So brand new parents, they're probably not too long out of school, they're not quite established yet. They want childcare that's inexpensive. Absolutely. They don't have the kind of means to be able to say, well, we're going to put our kids in the most expensive daycare, right? Versus a 30 parent, a 30-year-old or 30-something parent whose child is up to about 3 years old. They got a new promotion, they've got extra income coming in. What would you want from that facility now? Right? You want specialized childcare. Maybe you want extra attention. They want their child to be loved and cared for as if it were their own, right? So very different consideration here. They've got a little bit extra money. They're willing to spend it to make sure that they have good quality childcare. And then there's another example here where it's parents in their 40s. And now they have an executive income. Maybe their child is somewhere between 3 and 5. What would you want from that facility if you were at that point in your life? It's very different than the previous two examples. The child's education is now a consideration. So what if the child care offered something like a promise of education, right? What if the daycare could offer a written guarantee that all the children in this program will be reading at a first grade level before they enter kindergarten? Think parents in this specific situation at the very end here just might be interested in a daycare that offers this kind of education as part of their program. That's a really good way to identify your ideal target market and differentiate yourself from all of your competitors. So 3 different niche markets for the daycare, like I mentioned there before, just to kind of sum it up. The first group were mostly concerned about affordability. The second group were more concerned about a nurturing, loving environment. And the third group were interested in educational opportunities. So by identifying these up front, gives the business owner the opportunity to stand out from their competitors, right? Right. And then some prospects only have one button, hot button. Some may have 10 different ones, but identifying what those are allows you to be able to market to them. And if you're passionate about serving the one, that's your niche, right? If you've decided like, this is the one thing that we are the best at, and be really good at it. And sometimes you have to innovate to be able to present it that way, but be the best at it, right? If there are multiple hot buttons, then select the one that you have a true passion for serving. Because again, it gets really difficult to try and chase after 10 different things. Get really good at one, and then once you've nailed that and you own that segment of the market, then you might want to replicate it for a different hot button if you'd like, right? So now you've gone through the whole process. You identified the demographics or the physical characteristics. You've identified the emotional characteristics. You decided what your niche is. Now it's time to go back and review your physical profile. Now that you've identified who you really truly want to serve, does the initial physical profile that you did in the beginning, does that still match? Could you make it even more focused? Could you, maybe now instead of 20 to 40, maybe it's now 25 to 32, right? Where you really look at your demographic. It's like, yeah, once they hit 33, they all tend to seem to like their life changes. They move away, they get promotions or whatever that happens to be. I mean, it all depends on your business, but just know that it's okay to get really specific with that. And ask yourself, when it comes to my product or service, what could the prospects in my physical profile possibly want that could compel them to buy what I sell? The problems, the frustrations, the fears, or the concerns. And if you struggle with this, ask your existing customers. One of the best ways to get market research is ask people who are already buying from you. Ask them, what is it about us that you really truly appreciate? Why did you decide to work with us? What could we do better on, right? So you have really good information right at your fingertips. Now repeat that process until you clearly define who your ideal target market is. Now, here's the thing. You go through this exercise and you're like, great, I think I know what this is. But how will you know if you've chosen the right ideal target market? Well, you select a market that you can dominate in, that you can be unique, attract an audience who wants what you sell because it speaks directly to them. That's absolutely key. Stop trying to be all things to all prospects. Because when you've decided, no, this is who we're serving, and remember what I said earlier too, you'll still get other people who will come to you and say, hey, I know that I don't fit within that target profile that you just mentioned, but I might be still interested in working with you. That'll still happen. You'll still get what I call the outliers. These are people who are outside of it, but something about what you're saying resonates with them, and they're looking for a way to qualify in what you said. So stop being all things to all prospects. Become the obvious choice for the people you have a passion for serving, and to do that, it's really about you want to work with us because, and you have a list of reasons why the people who work with you have said, I wouldn't work with anybody else, right? You offer this level of service. You offer, free meals with your daycare, whatever that is. But something about it makes you the obvious choice. Why would I go to the guy down the road, pay twice as much for less? That's where you want to become that obvious choice. And then others from outside of your ideal will be looking for ways to be included. They still want to buy, right? So, and once you've done this, creating marketing messaging, becomes fun and relatively easy, because now you know exactly what you're trying to fix for people. You know exactly what you're trying to say, who you're trying to say it to, and you can get really specific about where you might find them. You can avoid the platitudes that every other competitor includes in their marketing. So things like, we've been in business for 25 years. I'll tell you a little secret. Your average consumer doesn't care, right? Because if that was if that was a differentiator for them, they would look at the competitor who's been in business for a year longer than you and go, well, all other things being equal, I guess I should use the one who's been in business 1 year longer. It's not a really true qualifier for them. You'll be more, you'll have more fun, joy, personal satisfaction working with customers that you are thrilled to serve. So, yes, based on what we've covered so far, you can see how going through this exercise allows you to maximize your efforts moving forward, right? And, think about the things that you're currently doing. So once you've gone through the exercise, figured out who's my ideal target market, who do I really want to focus on, who gets me excited about serving them, does your elevator pitch speak to them, right? And if you don't like the term elevator pitch, think of it as the 30-second introduction of who you are and who you help. Are all of your marketing materials speaking the same messaging to the same types of people? Does your website speak directly to these people? In your conversations that you're having with other business owners or individuals? When you're asking for referrals, do your referral partners know, I specialize in helping these people to fix this problem so that they can, whatever that specific benefit is? And if you're not speaking in those terms, you're likely missing some pieces and want to go through this exercise to identify who your ideal target client is. And in identifying ways to provide additional value, that's the other thing that I haven't even mentioned yet, is that it gets easier to identify things that are of additional value to your ideal target client. So when you know who they are, what their problems are, what you're able to help them solve, and then you go, hey, the same people also have a problem with X, Y, and Z. Who do we know that could help us solve problem X, Y, and Z? Or how could we internally innovate and provide something different to be able to address problem X, Y, and Z? Or how could we, come up with a solution to X, Y, and Z that no one else has ever thought of before? Because you put yourself in the shoes of your ideal target customer, you're able to do things like that. Well, wouldn't it be great if we had a solution to solve this problem? That's where it really gets you, creative and innovative. So, and in making the process for marketing easier and less time consuming, absolutely. Again, because you're not trying to be all things to all people. So, that's pretty much what I have for you today, folks. I appreciate you tuning in. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Here's my contact details. But ultimately, I wish you the best of success. I want you to take the time to go through the process of identifying your ideal target market, because I think that you'll find that your results will improve significantly very quickly once you get very, very clear about your ideal target market. So I want to thank you again for tuning in today.